The thing with Canvas UGC is that it is, in theory, low paying. And you're probably like, why the fuck would anybody be doing this? Hello, my perfect, beautiful, incredible, sexy humans who are my podcast listeners. Okay, so today's topic, we're going to be chatting about Canvas UGC because this is something that has been floating around a lot, and I want to just address it as someone who has been in this space for a long time and someone who's just an expert in all things UGC. So if you do not know what Canvas UGC is, it's basically where you create a ton of videos for a brand every single month and you post them to a dedicated TikTok account. So, like, you create a new TikTok and then you post on this account. It's often like 1 or 2 times every single day. So we're talking 30 to 60 posts every single month. The thing with this kind of content, yes, it's UGC, but it's often very simple UGC. Like sometimes it's just literally 5-second B-roll clip with text on screen. Sometimes it is just 20 seconds of you straight talking to the camera. Like it's simpler content than like a whole script and creative concept of a typical UGC video. That's usually what I see Canvas UGC is. And the thing with Canvas UGC is that it is, in theory, low paying. So, for example, my base rate for one organic UGC video is $550. It is not uncommon for a Canvas UGC job to pay like $500 for those 30 posts a month. Okay, so let's just do the math really quick on that. If we did $500 divided by 30 posts, that's $16.67 per video. And you're probably like, why the fuck would anybody be doing this? So let me explain. I feel like people who are mostly doing this are beginners or more like novice UGC creators who are just trying to build up experience, and they don't necessarily mind the hustle. Like these are people who are kind of used to an hourly job, working their butts off, and they might not care that much about like creating great content. It's more just like, sure, let's see how much I can pump out and like how much I can make from this. So with Canvas UGC, it's like, okay, sure, it's going to be 30 posts, but if each of those posts only takes you 30 minutes to create and post, because again, they're usually easier posts, then essentially you're making $33 an hour, which when you break it down like that, it's like, okay, that's actually not bad for an entry level or like intermediate job and salary. So when you break it down that way, it's like, okay, I could see why people would be doing this. And then on top of that, usually how Canvas UGC works is that you get paid out bonuses for views, or sometimes it's commission style. So sometimes they'll have a link attached to your videos where if anyone purchases through that link, you will get commission, or they do a view-based bonus. So for every, 5,000 views, you get paid out an extra $20 or something like that. If something goes viral, you can end up stacking up cash pretty well that way. The trade-off with this is there's no guarantee of what that is going to be, or if there's going to be any bonus at all. If none of the videos really do very great, you're just going to make that $500 and that's it. You could have a video or two that goes viral, and maybe instead of making $500 from that, you make $1,500. So it's a bit, I would say, unpredictable, but there definitely is opportunity there to increase the amount of money that you are making with those deals if you are good at creating content. And you can pump out videos that do well. So my take on it is, I don't think it's a scam. Like, Canvas UGC isn't a scam necessarily. It is just a different way of doing content. And I would say the cons that I see with that are the unpredictability. So like, you don't really know how much money you're going to make with each of those deals. You might know like the base that you're going to make with it, which isn't going to be much, but in terms of bonuses, that is really dependent. So that I would say is a con. And it's a bit lower paying, like it just is. So that's a con. And then one thing I see as a con here as well is, I think it's sort of promoting this culture on social media that we see of like more is better instead of better is better. What I mean by that is like, people are just posting so much content, and a lot of that content just isn't very good, but they're playing it like a numbers game. So they think, well, these 30 posts might not be the best 30 posts, but maybe like 2 of them will do well. So let's just do more volume. And I think that's sort of the approach here. And I think the issue with that is like, in a lot of ways, that's just what we hate about social media landscape right now, is it's just a lot of like not great quality content. And that's even something that I had like noticed in my own content as a coach. And like part of the reason I like wanted to bring more fun and personality back into my content as like an influencer, because a lot of the content that we are taught to post in order to like scale our business and all this stuff is just kind of mediocre content. And it's a lot of that like text on screen content and stuff like that yeah, sometimes does perform really well. But it's just, I think it's taking away a lot of the creativity, a lot of the personality of social media. And that's kind of how I see Canvas UGC as well. It's just, you're creating a large volume of mediocre content. And we are just continuing to inundate social media with that. And so that's kind of a recent thought I've had on that kind of negative side of Canvas UGC. Obviously, that's a personal opinion, but just kind of something I've seen in the industry lately and how social media has been going. And I think people are tiring of that type of content. The pros is it's easier to get into. So Canvas UGC is honestly easier for beginners and intermediate creators to get jobs, because the qualifications to do it just aren't as high. And again, that's just because you're not getting paid that much unless your content performs. And so I would say the pro is that it's easier to get those deals when you're building up your skills as a UGC creator. And that's another thing, is it is kind of a surefire way to increase your skills as a content creator, because you have to be creating a bunch of content. And so you're naturally going to get better faster at creating content. You're going to get better at talking to the camera. You're going to get better at understanding sales psychology and what works and what doesn't. That's another pro, is like, you do get to see the performance of these videos and, how many views are they getting? How are they performing? What worked? What didn't? And so you kind of get to put on that creative strategy hat a bit. And you also get to use that on your portfolio. So you're going to have those metrics that you can use to beef up your portfolio. And there is some sort of consistency in the sense of, there's agencies where you'll work with them and they'll be like, we pretty much guarantee to pay you $500 every single month, or we guarantee $1,000 every single month for this base rate of videos for you to post. And then everything you earn on top of that is just like extra. So it can be nice for consistency in terms of you can maybe more easily get retainers with Canvas UGC because they want you to be consistently posting on those accounts. And that's about it with the pros and cons list. I don't think it's a scam. I just think it has its place for some people, and others wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And I can see both sides. I don't think it's right or wrong to do Canvas UGC. I just think there's pros and cons to it. One, I recently got an inbound like yesterday from a platform called Drumbeat, and it's newer, and it's a Canvas UGC sort of setup, but for nonprofits, which I actually thought was cool. And so there are like certain opportunities where I'm like, okay, that is kind of like a cool setup, and I could see why that would work for nonprofits. And also, I like wouldn't hate that, like pushing something that I believe in, a cause that I believe in. And so I think there's certain instances where it might make sense for some people. If you are traveling a lot and you're trying to get more into tech UGC, right now, Canvas UGC is huge for that industry. And so it might be easier for you to get some more jobs doing Canvas UGC in the tech space. And then you don't have physical products, and you can do that wherever, literally anywhere in the world. A lot of people have strong opinions on Canvas UGC. Some people love it and they promote it a ton. Other people will be like, fuck Canvas UGC, it's a scam. So I think there's a lot of discourse right now on this type of UGC in this space, but those are my opinions on it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to more advanced creators unless you want to test it and see if like maybe if you are really good at creating content, it makes sense because you are going to get those high view counts and you are going to like drive a lot of sales. And so if you're doing commission based, it makes sense. But I just think it is very risky in that sense. Whereas, again, I can charge $550 for one video, and that's guaranteed. So, pros and cons, beginners versus advanced creators, kind of depends where you're at in your UGC journey and just what kind of content you like creating. But that's my take. That's my take, and that's the episode for today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I'll see you in the next episode.